Terry. Dr. Bruns is a professor and an off-campus program coordinator for the special education program in the School of Education at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. And if you've been to a SOFT conference, you know Dr. Bruns. She's been to many of them. She's a big part of our SOFT family. She interacts with the kids and steals babies, just like all of us love to do. She has been since 2007, she's been the principal investigator for the TRIS, which stands for Tracking Rare Incidence Syndromes project. And she is here today to share some more about how that has been going. So I will turn it over to you, Dr. Bruns. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Kelly and Terry. And just as a little plug, thank you for both of you for being involved with the project for many years and supporting it. I do feel that SOFT is my family as well, though I come in as a researcher, not a parent, and I always look forward to presenting every year. I'd say the last 4 or 5 years, I've kind of moved to this year in review type of a talk. So I want to run through the information with all of you, and then definitely have time put aside for questions, because I really want to interact and see everyone. And as someone who has been teaching via Zoom for 1.5 years, that's the same way when I work with my students. I'll present the information up front and then, open it up to discussion. I always start my talk with the mission statement for the project. And I think more importantly is the photo up here in the center. These 3 girls were my kind of doorway in to the rare trisomy world. Way back before I was teaching at a university, I taught in a specialized facility in New York City, which is where I'm from. And it was a nursing facility for children that lived there. They lived on site. And these 3 little girls, 2 were in my classroom 1 year, and the 3rd was in literally a classroom across the hall. And this was going back to the mid 1990s, maybe 92, 93, around that time. And I knew nothing about trisomy 18. And these girls were in my classroom, and it was when the internet was just starting. And literally I'd have to get on at 2 a.m. There was no Google yet or anything. You had these really primitive searches. And in order to find more information I knew about Down syndrome, I knew about Cri-du-Chat, things like that from my training. But when you went to look for information on trisomy 18, you literally saw autopsy photos. That's what I saw. And this photo is what I saw every day. And these 3 girls definitely looked similar. They had the phenotypic, the physical features. They had some similar medical issues. They had feeding issues, cardiac, respiratory issues to varying degrees. But very quickly I learned they were very different. They had very different personalities, very different temperaments, very different interest in socializing with my staff, very different just interest in interacting with the other children in the classroom. And I was hooked. That's how it happened. And fast forward, when I was a doctoral student and more was going on with the internet and listservs started popping up, I found my way into a group called Our Kids. Who the dad who started that group is still involved with it. He has 2 adult children with different disabilities. But importantly, I met a mom on that group who started the rare trisomy listservs, Karen in Australia. And it's been a relationship since then. So when I talk about the TRIS project starting in 2007, formally the research began then, but my interest has been, like I said, ongoing since the 1990s. And I'm really excited that I can pursue this and hopefully make a difference. So real quick, and I know the people on the presentation, some of you have been with the project for many years, so I apologize for the repetition. But for the new folks who are not only in the US, but beyond, what's important is the project is worldwide. There are families involved, We have pockets of people in Norway, in Germany, in Canada. There's a few folks in Singapore. I mean, there are families all over that are participating in the project. The main thing being able to read in English. We have not had the funding and the personnel, even though we've wanted to try to translate some of our materials, and that's still something on my wish list, to at least translate some materials into Spanish, if nothing else. But we do have a worldwide reach, and that's also been something I've always wanted to be able to do. But the main components is the TRIS project surveys. And what is unique about the project is the follow-up surveys. So once a parent begins to participate with us, whether their child was just born, whether their child's 5 years old or 12 years old or what have you, we kind of lock them in. And as long as the child is living, every year they're asked for an update. And this is the only project that does that has this longitudinal view. I know when you hear from Dr. Carey and Dr. Kozov yesterday and some of the other folks, often that's data that comes from hospital registries, which is great because it gives us a snapshot with some of the cardiac interventions and things like that. But my hope has always been with the TRIS project to have it be very broad and be able to look at many different issues. So whether it's seizures, heart surgery. My background, again, is as a teacher, so I'm very interested in the developmental component and always excited when I hear from other people as well. You know, a child doesn't have to necessarily walk independently, but they can use a gait trainer, and that counts as walking because that gets them from point A to point B. I'm also interested in the family component, in family support, and how siblings are affected. And I think going to the SOFT conference for all these years, that's been a huge impact for me to see the siblings that grow up and see some of them pursue nursing and education and just always be there for their sibling, whether they're the youngest or the oldest or in between, and just really seeing how families grow with this member that has some unique needs. So we have the full survey, which I call the baseline survey. Those of you who've taken it, you know it's very involved, it's very long, especially if you come into the project and your child's older. It goes back to birth history, medical issues at birth, and then up until the present time when the survey is actually being completed. Again, it goes into medications, surgeries, different types of services that the child is receiving. And then there's also a section about developmental skills as well. So again, my background in special education and teaching kind of comes through in that part of it. There is also the modified survey, which is completed by parents of children who lived up until 60 days. And that can also be children that were miscarried, stillborn, and such are also included in that group. What I'm also going to highlight in kind of the year in review is some of the questions and requests that come in to the TRIS project. We have our own dedicated email address, and I'll tell you a little bit about who's behind the screen on that. And people also were asking me questions directly by email, through Facebook, which has been a wonderful door, again, that's opened to people around the world and communicating and being able to support families in that way. So what I wanted to kind of go through was just for folks who aren't familiar with the project, just to give you an idea of the size and the scope. So I go through how many surveys have actually been completed to date, starting from 2007, the types of outreach and recruitment types of things that are ongoing, and then collaboration has really picked up in the past few years. And they've been some really kind of happy accidents sometimes with people reaching out, and sometimes projects kind of get off the ground and become huge. And sometimes it's things that will take a couple of years to come to fruition. So I wanted to kind of highlight a few things there. And as always, kind of a shout out to SOFT USA. because as has been mentioned, I've been going to conferences for over 10 years. Definitely feel part of the SOFT family, have been supported by SOFT in many different ways, and hopefully have that moving forward. So this is the only slide I'll give you that has numbers. And typically for me as a researcher, I like more to talk to people and do interviews and things like that. So I don't do a ton of the number part, but I think, again, it's important to show the scope of the project. So this is as of 2 weeks ago. And during COVID, I've largely been working from home, which is where I am right now. But I do go to my office on campus at Southern Illinois University, probably about 2-3 times a month. And I enter survey completions every time that I go. So this is based on my last visit to campus. And what I try to highlight here is the number of people that are enrolled and then the actual number of surveys that have been completed. So for the modified survey, there are at this time 275 people enrolled in that category. So that is for the children that lived 60 days or less. And about 90% of that group has completed their survey, which is phenomenal. If you have any background in research, what we typically look for as a success rate in survey completion is 40% or higher. So 90% is off the charts. And then for the full survey, we have now just over 1,000 people involved, which is amazing. It's still mind-boggling to me to have that many. And we have about 57% completed there. Again, what I wanted to highlight was for an audience for SOFT is all types of rare conditions are part of my project. So it isn't only 18 and 13. There's a large group, I think actually the largest group of children and adults with trisomy 9 mosaicism is part of the TRIS project. We have over 100 right now. So within that 1,006, there's over 100 that have 9 mosaicism. And we've been able to have several publications come out about that group, and another publication hopefully in the works for the next year. We also have folks with trisomy 8 mosaicism, 6P, any one of those rare types. The TRIS project kind of is open to that. So I just wanted to clarify that it isn't only 18 and 13, even though much of the work that's been done in project publications and such has really focused on that group. So as I mentioned, the follow-up survey, if you're in the project, you are reminded every year to log back in and provide us an update. So this is just numbers to show you that from 2007, we've had almost 400 year 1 updates. So this is where I always say to all the people who say incompatible with life and that very few children live to see their first birthday, these are the numbers that I want people to pay attention to. So if you just look through the numbers from year 1, and we just started year 13 and had 1 completion so far. So again, to all the people that say, don't do the surgery, just send them home on comfort care. I see part of the contribution of the project is starting to better understand kind of the profile of the children that are still here and trying to figure out, why they're still here. Is it because they were given a trach early on? Is it because they had cardiac surgery? Is it because they weighed more at birth? I mean, there are just many, many questions, and my hope is always that the TRIS project can help. And the other piece of these follow-up surveys is something that we've seen that's been mentioned earlier this week, for example, is seeing seizure activity in some of the children with trisomy 18 especially. And there definitely seems to be some type of correlation with hitting puberty. And looking further into that, where if I have someone who comes into the project when their child's really young and is doing their annual updates, I can literally see when the seizures began. From their, maybe at their year 4 follow-up, the child was 9 or 10 years old, and then all of a sudden in year 5, seizures had started. And we know with some of the children, because of the medications they're on, they may have early onset puberty, and then all kinds of things start getting a little bit wacky, as they do in typical teenagers when things are happening with puberty. But now with some of the data in the project, I feel like we can kind of zero in on that a little bit. So that's why I want to highlight the follow-up numbers. Awareness. Again, one of the things I always say thank you to all the parents and medical folks that do call outs and put my name in Facebook posts to get my attention so I can reply. And it's on the soft pages, on the Rare Trisomy parents page, many different pages, and parents then reaching out to me on Facebook Messenger as well. We did have a TRIS Facebook page, but unfortunately when Facebook shifted, I don't know, it was the business pages or the organization pages or something, I lost access to the page and I still don't know why. I was able to get back in once or twice and then it kicked me out again. And we had over 1,500 likes on the page at that point. And right now, especially with COVID, I'm kind of doing all of this by myself. So it's just unfortunately not at the top of my list to try to get a new Facebook page started, but it's on my list when things hopefully calm down a little bit. I mentioned that we did have a dedicated email address, tris@siu.edu. I also have my email address, which is at the end of the presentation. If you send something to TRIS, it goes to the most wonderful person who has been working with the project since day one, when it was just a kernel of a thought, Shirley Lockwood. She's the person who sends you the reminders to do your surveys, whether you're doing your baseline or your follow-up or to complete a modified one. The TRIS email address goes to her. If she can answer your questions, she will. And then if needed, she forwards them on to me. So that's kind of our procedure there. Something that I've been following for the past few years, which has been really positive, is you can go into Google and they have alerts. And if you put in Trisomy 18, Trisomy 13, Trisomy 9, all of that, I get alerts almost every day. And that sends me to articles in newspapers, little segments on TV that show often, not always, but often show folks with rare trisomy in a positive light. And I've actually been collecting all of that. I've been printing off things over the years. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with all of it. I do want to write something up about it because there's definitely been a shift that I've seen in the past, I'd say 5, 6, 7 years, where there's many more positive news stories, where a news crew comes out because the child's celebrating their first birthday or their 5th birthday, or a foundation has been started. And these news stories and things come from all around the world as well. So I've been kind of collecting them and cross-referencing some of these stories that are families that are in the TRIS project. And there's some folks that have gotten a lot of coverage for some really amazing things that have happened, on behalf of their child receiving their Make-A-Wish, or being able to receive a piece of equipment. And again, to me, in terms of raising awareness, more and more stories like that, and March being Trisomy Awareness Month, and parents reaching out to get people to come and do a story on their child, and having the governor send, a proclamation to them and things like that has just been phenomenal in the past, again, 5 to 7 or 8 years. I included the link to enroll in the project. So those of you out there that are not part of the project just yet, if you go to that link, you answer probably about half a dozen questions, and within 48 hours, you will receive a unique login and password that stays with you through the duration in the project. So when we have face-to-face conferences, I'm usually the one walking around with little pieces of paper, or now my laptop, trying to get new folks enrolled. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have about enrollment as well. So just quickly to highlight the last conference we had in person, if you were there, if you've heard about it, I was able to bring Martina Biaggi with me from Italy. She's involved in filmmaking. And there is now a documentary that is completed that's actually going to start being shown at film festivals very, very soon. I think there is one next month to start things off. With COVID, everything got pushed back. But it is her journey coming to the SOFT conference, the last time we were all able to meet. And she actually arrived in Chicago and then came down here to me in Southern Illinois and spent some time with me. We had an undergrad student that came with us, and we drove out to Michigan to the conference, and she had her camera going the whole time. And during the conference, again, if you were there, you saw her with a camera. She interviewed quite a few families. Her focus started with trisomy 9 mosaicism. She has a family member with that, and she had kind of started some interest there. She has the book that she's showing there that had photographs. She had a big gallery show in Italy with all of her photographs, because she found other folks in nearby areas that had a child with 9 mosaicism, and she just wanted to learn more about awareness and helping the families that she met in Italy not feel so alone. So I've actually been on a few Zoom calls with her, which has been interesting because everything is in Italian and then it's translated, going back and forth, but meeting other families there. Her dad has some background in research, so he and I have been kind of reviewing some data as well, and hope to continue to move forward with that. But I just listed a number of the festivals where this Io Sono, I Am project, the documentary, is being shown. And if you are interested, I believe Martina has given me the okay now to share the link to the actual documentary. It's just under an hour. It's wonderful. If you were at that last conference, you will probably see yourself on this documentary. This was, again, kind of a happy accident type of thing. There is a mom who, she might be on the call right now. If you are, hi, Sarita. She runs the iwi Foundation, and this is started with her son, who is diagnosed with trisomy 18. The family, they live in Alabama. And she and her husband and some folks close to her have started this foundation, which has a number of programs, and I've listed them here. They had their first advocacy conference last month, which was wonderful. People kind of talking about ways to engage with medical professionals, getting equipment that children need, and so on. And we just kind of connected with each other earlier this year. I think it was a Facebook post or something that I came across, and I reached out to Sarita, and here we are. So now I'm on their advisory board, which is really exciting. And they're just doing amazing things. So I'm very happy to be able to be a part of the iwi Foundation. As I said, I've had a relationship with SOFT for many years at this point. So SOFT has been supporting me with recruitment, like at the conference. I was part of the virtual conference last year. Again, there's been quite a few times, especially Ann Barnes, and if you're on the call, thank you. Ann has often put my name on Facebook posts for people asking for information. Sometimes it's even funding related. Maybe a child has passed away and they want to provide some money in honor and in memory. And TRIS is viewed as one of the options for that to support the project. And then I continue on as a member of SOFT USA's Medical and Scientific Advisory Board. Also in the past, probably about 2 years, I've been working more with SOFT UK. And that's also through knowing a number of parents who are from England and Scotland and Ireland, and getting in touch with some of their executive board members. So they're also working on a virtual conference this year. They usually meet every other year. We were set to meet in person, and then a decision was made, I think it was in April or so, that we're not. So no trip to the UK for me this year, maybe next year. But I'm supposed to do a video overview of the project, so probably be recording a Zoom session, and then we will have an actual live Q&A on Zoom. I believe the date is September 18th, I'm involved with that. Dr. McCaffrey is involved with that as well. And I believe there was one other medical person from the US that was invited. I'm a professional advisor for Soft UK. I've been asked to assist with their research page on Facebook, and they've done some like really neat things on Facebook as well as their website. And I've been in contact with a number of families there. This one I'm just going to run through really quickly, but just to give you an idea of what some people reach out to me about when requests come through either the TRIS at siu.edu or directly to me or on Facebook or what have you. So it's been a real range of contacts, but I just wanted to highlight that I've had people contact me from as far away as Thailand, the Netherlands, Algeria. I mean, places where really and truly parents are saying no one knows about trisomy 18 or 8 mosaicism or what it may be. And they may have seen my name come up in a search. They might have stumbled onto the TRIS project website. And they have different types of requests. So basically, these are the types of requests that come from parents. It can be medical, developmental, more related to support and or resources. And I will do my best to respond with TRIS project materials. If I can provide an article, if I can provide, several years ago, I put together information modules that I wanted for access for families and for medical professionals that go over basics about trisomy 18. There's one on 18, 13, and 9 mosaic. For the 18 and 13 is for foals, so I still need to work on mosaics for those. But they give kind of an overview of some medical conditions, developmental types of things, lots of photos. I always have many, many photos in anything I do for TRIS, because I always want to highlight the children, that we're not just talking about a diagnosis, we're talking about a person. So these are some of the areas. So this is just some of the kind of the general categories that have come up, and things that I find interesting. If you come down to the requests about specific condition, weight curve in T18, that it was literally a parent reaching out that they were being questioned by child services in their state. This was someone in the US about their child potentially being neglected because they were so tiny. And this particular mom, what I did was I shared the soft care book. And I said, hey, there's weight and height charts in there specifically for T18, because often when people look at a child with 18 or 13, they think of 21 because, oh, it's another genetic condition. But we all know that kids with 21 tend to be big. They tend to be kind of chunky kids. So looking at a T21 weight curve is going to make it even worse. So a child with T18 usually is way at the bottom of a quote normal weight curve. So what I wanted to do to help this particular parent was give them the T18 weight curve so they could go back to the people that were concerned that this child was being malnourished. Always conversations about seizure meds that come up with every time a new medication comes out on the market, and I have to kind of keep up because, again, my background is more in education than in medicine, but I'm more than happy to learn about these things. So I try to go through survey data called data mining, where I look for something specific and try to pull out information that I can then kind of package and share with parents. And I love to do that. It just takes time. Because even during the summer, I'm teaching a class, I have meetings, and then I try to devote a good bit of time to TRIS every day and every week as well. So when parents have a request, I always say, hey, it may take me a week or two, but I will pull this data together for you. Again, just some other questions. This first one was a dad had reached out asking about some less conventional therapies for his daughter with partial 13. And I told him to look into things like HIPAA therapy, music therapy, and such. And then to go back to his child's team and not to make decisions without them. And what was great was I had a mom that was asking on one of the T9 Mosaic specific pages, was asking how many families were involved in the TRIS project. And she herself is in, I want to say, the Netherlands. And there were, the last time I checked, there were over 25 responses of people saying, yes, I'm in the project. I just completed my third year follow-up and so on. So that was something that made me very, very happy to see. I do get requests from students. I've had requests from high school students. I've had requests from university students. This one was a little unique because this was someone at a university. She's a nursing major, but she was asking about an issue of a T9 related variant in her boyfriend's family and thinking about the future if she were to have children with him. So that was a little bit unique. And then I hear from professionals, and this is always really exciting to me again, because my background, again, I'm in education. I have a PhD, not an MD. But I know through Dr. Carey, who's been a wonderful support for me and some other folks, people see my, not me, but see the TRIS project as helpful to provide, medical information and such. So I always get very excited when medical professionals reach out to me. So there was someone from Washington University that's here in St. Louis. It's about 2 hours away from me. There was a genetic counselor from NYU. And then there was a complex care pediatrician from St. Paul, Minnesota. So again, I'm not always clear if they stumble onto the website or how this all happens, but these were people that had emailed me directly with questions. Again, so those were kind of medical professionals. This list is more folks related to schools and kind of community agencies that have reached out to me. Maybe all of a sudden they have a child with trisomy 13 on their caseload and they've never worked with a child with that diagnosis before. So I do my best to assist. So it was a few folks in Illinois, and then someone popped up from Michigan asking about summer programs for a student that she works with. And this was interesting. This was someone at a university in the Netherlands that was asking about the screening, some of these screening tests that are done. And she was asking specifically on trisomy 8, which is kind of one of those rare conditions. And then again, typically what I do as far as general responses is I think of kind of the TRIS project library. So there are summaries. If you go to the website, there are summaries of all of the articles that have been published. And then I also have links to those information modules I mentioned. And then there are case studies. The case studies are getting a little bit dated. They were first completed. There are 12 original case studies. They were completed pretty much in 2014 and 15. And then about 2 years ago, we, with a student helping me, we did an update on 4 of those case studies. The children were still living, and it was an update on new surgeries, new services, family situations. So again, if you're interested in taking a look, all of those case studies can be downloaded as PDFs for your use to share with medical professionals, whatever you would like to do with that. As I said, if it's a more specific question, I can data mine and go through the database and pull information. And I've also tried to connect people again with SOFT, and then groups like NORD and Unique, the EWE Foundation, just different places that have resources and information to share. So this is a picture of Shirley, who I mentioned before, who is kind of the glue behind the scenes that keeps track of new enrollments, sends out reminders for people to complete their surveys. I also do twice a year, I do an update on the website. So it's kind of a 6-month quick review of new things that have been happening, things that are being worked on, new numbers of completions, and so on. So that is done twice a year. And again, the continued collaboration. I also work with a researcher at NIH She's interested in T8 mosaicism, specifically there's a few medical issues that come up for a lot of the children, and she's been tracking that. So we've been working kind of hand in hand, that if I have a new completion come in for someone with T8 mosaic, I ask the parent if they're okay with me sharing their information with this researcher, and then we kind of go back and forth. So she's referred some people to me, and I've referred some people to her. So this is the final slide. My email address is here, the homepage for the project, the enrollment page, the 6-month update page, the modules, the case studies, and then finally the page that has the summary of all of the TRIS publications and presentations to date. So I am going to stop that, and whatever technological wizardry you guys are doing, I'm more than happy to answer questions.
I'm going to bring everybody in. So that's going to take a minute or two, and that way they can just ask you their questions directly. So like I said, give me a minute. It's a slow process.
Yep. I'm just looking on the chat.
I'm working from the other end, Kelly.
Someone from Mexico. Awesome. And Christina, hi there. Awesome. All right. Oh, hi, Anne. Did you hear me singing your praises for giving me shout outs on the soft Facebook page? Because that's definitely helpful for me.
You know what? Where's my other camera? Shoot. What a good camera. What a good camera.
Awesome. Hi, Renee. Hi, Julie.
Where's the good
Leah.
camera? I haven't done anything.
There's Sarita. Did you hear me talking about you?
Oh, here it is. I need lights. Oh, man. The jump box.
Up, Sarah Hayes, I see you. Awesome.
Oh yeah, I gotta turn around.
Oh, Betty Ray, goodness. That's someone who's been with the project for a while. There's Anne. This is great. Oh, Jennifer's down there. I mean, Kelly, is it okay if someone just has a question to
Yeah, absolutely.
jump in?
That's totally fine.
That works for me. Or we can just visit. That's okay too.
We can do that when you're done.
Okay. Yep. And I'm literally, as we're sitting here, Renee Bradley, you rock. I just got your completion notice. Thank you. See, this is my low-tech way. This is where I write my preliminary data, and then I go into campus and I put it in my computer. So this is great. This is the third completion I've gotten today.
Sorry, it's taken me a little while. Everything's been a little crazy.
It got done. That's all that I care. It's okay.
So I have a question, Debbie.
Yes.
Because I've got mine, and I have to admit, I'm not Johnny on the spot getting it done.
I know.
So you're very well aware of that, right? I know I'm not the only one. But when it says whatever year it is that the year number of times we've responded? Because obviously it's not in correlation with the year. So that means, and I have no idea how long I've been in the project, but that means I've dropped the ball more than I intended to.
Well, I mean, literally, I've got the database up. So just as an example, I don't want to like
embarrass me.
Yeah, you said.
Oh, go ahead.
Not me. So I have your first year, and I mean, I think it's just interesting. You first came in, and if it's any, your ID number is 104. So
Okay.
that gives you an idea, because
Yeah.
now we just hit 1,000.
Right. Okay.
You completed Chrissy's initial one in, hold on, in 2010.
Okay, so I'm not as far behind as I thought I might have been.
Okay, but let me see where you are now.
Oh, I know where I am.
Okay.
I've got it sitting up in my email. And I think a lot of it is as she reached, there was a lot of change in the first 10 years. If I'd been doing it in the first 10 years, I'd have probably been way more, not just motivated, but inspired to get on it because there was so much going on. And a lot, I was on it the first few years, but honestly, since she turned 16, you know, she's a little adult and not a lot of, you know, she's 21 now, but not a lot has changed in a regular. So I understand why. That's my story and I'm sticking to it.
No, that's fine. But I think what's important as I look out in the group, because, you know, many of you were told your child would never be a teenager.
Right.
I think what's important for me to see is that things are status quo, that there aren't new issues that have come up,
Right.
you know, between 16 and 21. It's the same meds. It's the same, you know, G-tube feeds. It's the same, whatever. I think that's just as important as we had this huge surgery last year that changed everything.
Yeah. And that, you know, I'm sure it motivates it. And that also hearing that from you, that the redundancy, I mean, sometimes it feels redundant, but redundant, I mean, yeah, she's, knock on everything. It's so stable. It's just crazy.
I think part of what all of this is building to, and I know like Dr. Carey is all about this, is to have this natural history, to have this profile. So having, you know, Christy and Kaya and all of those guys in there, even when they're stable, is really important, because we know like when they're tiny and they're talking about, you know, checking for Wilms tumor and all these kind of things, we also want to make sure that it's still being done when they're older. So maybe we don't have to check every 6 months, or we check every year, or we check every 2 years. Or when someone, you know, the pediatric cardiologist says, oh, we don't need to see you anymore. Well, I don't believe that, because as they're getting older, especially for girls with all the puberty crazy stuff, I think they need to be checked again every year, you know, if there's some kind of a concern.
Well, and we've been booted from our pediatrics because she's 21, except a couple of them are keeping her. And so that's when our struggle is finding doctors. Fortunately, we don't really need them. So it's, there's that, but we still want them on the list.
I've heard that from several parents of, you know, when and if the child gets admitted again, I don't want to go to the adult unit.
No.
You know, how do we navigate that?
Nothing fits. Exactly. Yeah. We're still dealing with it anyway.
Yep.
That's called good problems to have.
Exactly.
I have a question for Deborah.
Sure.
How many of the, like my daughter's trisomy 13 mosaic, and she was diagnosed with, she had low blood sugar when she was born and we gave her the sugar water. But as she got older, about 5 years ago, she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and thyroid problems. Is that something that you're seeing, or are we testing kids?
Right. So my answer, in all honesty, is I'd have to look that up. It doesn't ring a bell right off the top, but what I do when I data mine is I would go in and just limit it to children with the same diagnosis. And then I know I have items on the survey that ask questions about those areas. And then I would be able to kind of come to people who said, yes, that was an issue.
Well, I know that we didn't know that she was type 1 diabetic, but she was losing so much weight that somebody said, have you had her tested? So I took her in and her blood sugar was over 600 when they tested her, but nobody thought to test her prior to that.
Okay. Yeah. And that's, I mean, I've heard of a few, I mean, this is anecdotally, I've heard of a few cases of that, but again, I don't think there's been enough to move it into that profile to say this is something that should be checked every 6 months or checked every year. So I'm more than happy to look up that information for you. If you want to put like your email in the chat box so I can grab it, or if you want to send me an email with your question, just give me a little bit of time, but I can try to pull things out of the survey and see if, you know, other people's experiences with that.
Okay, because she is in your project.
Oh, okay. Let me just look at your name there. Let me look you up. I have my database up in front of me. So this is great to like put people together. Oh, you just completed a follow-up recently.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I have your information. What I'll probably do is just send you a quick email for you to just kind of send me again what you just said. So I have the parameters to look up to do some data mining for you.
Right.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to do
I
that.
also saw a
Yeah.
thing that you had for anesthesia on trisomy 18. Are there issues with trisomy 13? Because she's had issues.
I know that is just a concern kind of across the board with the rare kiddos with all the respiratory issues. But I can drill down if you'd like and see if it was a more of a T13 mosaic issue. I mean, I know in the database there aren't a ton of kids with 13 mosaic, so it's going to be a small group to look at.
Yeah. Well, I know that when they give her the anesthesia, she'll either go right under or they have to give her almost overdosed for it to take in her system. So she metabolizes differently.
Gotcha. Anne, can I put you on the spot? Do you have?
I don't have an answer to that. I'm sorry. I just don't. It's a good question to put out on Facebook in the groups to ask. Don't forget, TRIS has the Living with Trisomy 13 group.
Right.
You could put it in that group, and you could put it in the soft Facebook group, and see. Parents are very good at sharing their information.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not a question that's come up before, but it certainly could be a concern.
Right. But again, I'm more than happy to dig into the database to take a look at what's going on.
Good,
so I'll
you.
just go ahead and email you, and then I'll make sure I have the specific parameters of what to look at.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Deborah, I have a question. Deanie, Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter has 2 versions of trisomy 9.
Okay.
We're in the project, but for about 4 years, she was sick. Like, we just lived in the hospital, and then everything went haywire. So I know I missed some years of follow-up.
Okay.
So how do I get back on track? I know I can't necessarily recapture the past years. As far as when did I see her do this skill or that skill? I mean, maybe in her IEP. I have her surgeries and procedures and exact dates, but how do I get back involved and share all the information that I have without, you know, because I know I can't pinpoint some of it to, it was this year, 4 years ago, 3 years ago.
Right.
I can do currently.
Sure. Well, again, I just pulled up your information, so I see what you're talking about with a gap. Is if you go back into the system, into the follow-up survey, it's going to ask you for, so let's say in the past 4 or 5 years, if she's had multiple surgeries, all of them can be entered.
Okay.
If there's been new medications added, they can be entered.
Okay.
If there's been a change in her school services, then we can do just the most recent change.
Okay, now I do have the past IEPs, so I know which, you know, if something was added then taken away that way. I was just referring to, you know, saying, was she 4, 5, or 6 when she raised her left hand or something, you know, something stuff like that. I wouldn't remember exactly when, but.
No, and that's fine. Actually, in the follow-up survey, there's just a general question about developmental change. So you don't have to give me all the specifics. It's really a yes, no question at the end of the survey.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. But thank you. Thank you. I pulled you up and you completed the baseline in year 1, and then there was a gap for year 2. So at your convenience, if you can go back to it, that would be great. If you need your login and password information, again, I'm more than happy to send that to you.
Yes, I will, and probably give an updated email address as well.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say I have a Verizon.net.
Yeah, that's an old one. I mean, it's still active, but I don't get alerts every time I get a message from that one. So I would give you an updated one where I'm more active in it.
Awesome. Okay, so then I would just ask you to send me an email at the DA Bruns, and then I can update your email address in the database
Okay.
and then send you your login information.
Okay, that'll be fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So Deborah, I want to thank you. This has been a great presentation. I'm going to have to leave because I want to listen to John Kerry. Okay.
I got it.
He's on in about 5 minutes, I think. Thank you
Yep.
very much.
Yep, thank you, Anne. You've been
And,
super helpful.
and he's on at 3 o'clock. So he's on in an hour and 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I'm looking at Central Time. Okay.
Yeah, you worried me. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I running?
Wait, I didn't go that far over.
Your Zoom thing just came through, and I looked at it and I thought, oh, I better move on.
An hour and 5.
Yeah, well, and then I guess I'm supposed to be finishing up. So again, if anyone has other questions for me, I'll kind of be popping in during some of the other sessions. But if you are not part of the project, I just ask to consider enrolling. And a lot of people that I'm looking at right now have been part of the project for many years, even if they haven't been super active, and that's okay. But definitely, looking out at, like, Julia's been doing it forever. Like I said, Betty Ray, hats off. You are definitely one of our long-termer people. Sarah, like, it's just so exciting for me to be able to really see the project come to fruition, because that was my whole point of tracking, is to look over time, where most everything that I saw in the medical literature was a snapshot of time, which is important in terms of decision making and kind of opening the way for more children to have heart surgery and things like that. But I've always, again, being a teacher and focusing on development, I've always wanted to see the span, and going back to the kids that I worked with in my classroom and working with them for almost 2 years. I think that's what really stuck with me, is seeing the changes that they were able to make in feeding and interacting with their environment. Even when they had medical setbacks, they were still making progress in their development and engaging, with their environment, when so many people were saying, oh, they're incompatible with life, they can't do anything. And I was like, really? I have a kid pulling her NG tube out like every day and handing it to me and laughing, like she knew what she was doing 100%. And this was the time where they weren't placing G tubes because they didn't want to take a chance with them. They didn't want to, anesthetize them. So I had NG tubes being pulled out all the time in my classroom. But that's really, the soul of this for me, is it started out with the children that I worked with, and then becoming part of that listserv way back with Karen and the Soft family taking me in, and now I'm part of the Soft UK family too. That's why I do this. So thank you to all of you that are part of the project or considering to be part, and hopefully I'll have more time in the next year or two to get more writing done, go back to presenting at some medical conferences and things like that. That's really my hope for the next few years.
There is one question. Is there an age limit on joining the TRIS project?
Not at all. Your child can be just born. We actually put a placeholder. If you start, we've had people join when they were pregnant. And then we have a placeholder waiting for the baby to be born and seeing what happens. If your child is older or an adult, if you start at that point, you just have some catching up to do on that baseline survey. So you'll need to pull some old files with dates and names of medications and where you had a surgery, if you moved in the past 10 years, things like that. But there's definitely no restriction on age to begin.
And then in the chat, Sarah asks, the teeth grinding, how do we resolve? Oh, I wish I knew. My 18-year-old is terrible.
The only thing I can say was a bunch of years back, I had a mom ask me about some dental issues that her daughter was having, that turned into an article that went into a specialized dental journal. I didn't realize there was one just for like special populations. I know the teeth grinding came up. I know the picking, like at the gums. I would have to go back and see as far as treatment, because the one thing that I've learned with the survey is because it's a survey study, I can't change anything on the survey. So the survey that you complete today is the same that I developed 14 years ago. So I do have items about dental care, but I don't know if I had all the items about dental care. I think it was more about identifying issues than necessarily their solution. So, you know, while I understand that the grinding can definitely get you crazy and do things in their mouths that shouldn't be happening, I would have to go back to the survey to see if anything was addressed to what the solutions are, like to wear some type of a, you know, retainer or something like that. I don't remember offhand, and I know I've learned in the past 14 years that there were areas that are not captured on the survey in as much depth as they maybe should be, because when I was putting everything together and getting initial feedback, it was 15, 16 years ago. And certain things weren't really even discussed very much. I had a lot of feedback from parents. I had some feedback from medical folks, but like I did not go to a dentist to ask for feedback on dental issues. I did not go to an ophthalmologist to ask about, you know, eye-related issues. So, but I can look and see just numbers, because I'm sure the teeth grinding was one of the items on the dental part. So, Sarah, would you want me to do that, to kind of dig into that a little bit? Or are you still on?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, there you are. Okay.
We have, I've talked to her dentist several times. Her bottom teeth are actually getting loose right now from grinding.
Gotcha.
And she just will just keep on doing it. She just sits there and she just does it, you know.
Gotcha.
Another thing is for the eyes is the Entropion. She has the lower lids revert into the eyes, and so they have said they have done the surgery to try and repair it, but it went right back. And so they're saying, oh, we'll have to laser the lower eyelashes. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to laser her eyelashes off. Yeah, but then we tried to see if we could get a mold made, and the dentist said they wouldn't do that.
Huh.
For like a mouth guard. And
Okay.
for fear of aspiration is why they say they wouldn't do that.
Again, that is beyond what I know, but Anne, do you think that's a Steve Cantrell question?
The eye issue definitely would be a Steve Cantrell question. The dental issue. That's
right. I mean, I can try to look up just numbers about the grinding, but
right.
Sarah, have you ever reached out to Dr. Cantrell?
No, I have not.
Okay. I can probably help get you connected.
We have
that. I think I still have his old, or you guys have his email address.
He's also speaking. Did you register for his event? He is speaking tomorrow at, I want to say it's at 5 o'clock. I'm checking my schedule right now.
Something like that, yeah. It's at 5 o'clock.
Seizures? The one on seizures?
No, for eyes. The eye issues that you're saying you're having?
Yeah, what is he talking about?
Dr. Cantrell is talking about managing, talking about managing photosensitive seizures, light sensitivity, and ocular health.
Yeah. I want that one.
Okay. So that's, you can ask that question of him for sure.
Okay. Sarah, this is Terry. Chrissy has had a ton of eye issues, including 2 corneal transplants. We've dealt with some things. So if you want to connect with me online, we can, get together and even talk on the phone or whatever, because I may have at least some tips. I'm not a doctor. I'm not claiming to be, but I might be able to help you out.
All right, thank you.
But you have an MD in Chrissy.
That's true.
And a PhD. For sure.
Rachel, say hi.
There is a question in the chat. Steffi is asking, are you going to give the data to Dr. Carey and Dr. Battaglia? We're discussing with
Right.
Italy having limited data.
Yeah, I know it's on, Dr. Carey said he would connect us. So I'm waiting for Dr. Carey to take the lead on that, but I'm more than happy to share TRIS project data in that other study.
I just want to mention something about the grinding of the teeth.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So we do use chewy toys a lot, and we just plop it in her mouth because she's
Just
gonna grind.
throws it out.
Yeah, because she grinds anyway. But often I was like, through the information that I've gotten over the years from many like occupational therapists, and that a lot of it is self-stimulation. And I find the more she's engaged, the less she does it. But the thing is my child, and maybe most of trisomy 18, they want to be engaged 24/7. And so it's not possible. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is either, because my daughter's teeth are getting horrible as well.
Chrissy has a whole repertoire of self-stim where one day we're focused on hitting ourselves. The next day,
Yeah.
we're not hitting ourselves anymore. We're going to drool all day. And just last night, I noticed, okay, you've added the grinding. The grinding has always been going on, but I think we're now dedicating an entire day to it every third day. Anyway, they're funny. They are funny.
Yep. So again, thank you to all of you, because most of you on the call are in the project already. So I so appreciate the folks that have been kind of hanging out with me for many years at this point. And for new folks that are interested, to encourage you to enroll, and any way that I can help, please do let me know. And again, thank you to Kelly and Terry for making this all happen on the technology end.